Hi, everybody. I'm coming on a little early. Some things going on tonight, so wanted to come on early. Hope everyone's preparing for Christmas, and we will get started. We have a boom in activity, a total boom in activity, and make sure that everything is working. Looks like everything is working. And, all the pieces have been coming together, right? All the pieces in Richard's case have come together. The case is broken, right? So now let's get started and I'll explain to you. This is day 1,967 days since Richard was forcibly removed from his barracks room, taken to the arms room, and confronted there. The arms room is a basement room. If you've seen the videos, I've posted up the videos of his building and the arms room with the security seal on the door. We've have information that confirms that there was a renovation done to that room without proper protocols, with no expense spared by General Eisenhower, okay, by General James Eisenhower, Major General. He should be stripped from his uniform. The same thing with Sean Bernabe. The same thing with Don. All these generals, I don't know how they made general, because they're absolutely treasonous. They're absolutely traitors to this country. How did they get their stars? Was it quid pro quo for all this trafficking, right? For all the trafficking? Because that's what it looks like. It looks like they were taking something in from the trafficking, because they absolutely created an atmosphere, an environment that was very friendly to the trafficking, and they covered up Richard's murder, who he is the Fort Bliss whistleblower soldier that was reporting this criminal trafficking, reporting the worst type of crimes against children to CPS, to Washington, D.C., to FBI Houston, because he couldn't trust FBI El Paso, could he? With Connell Winton there, with Eddie Nieto Jr. there, right? With his wife being in intelligence on Fort Bliss up to no good. He couldn't trust FBI, or George Toros, whose wife is Mendez in Texas Tech University Health Science Center. That guess who's working with her? Mayela. Patrick Crucius's family is working with her. This is all. Once I mentioned Obama today, everything just went absolutely bonkers. Millions and millions of views, because we're the only ones reporting on what is going on at the border in El Paso. We're the only ones reporting Richard Halliday's case, the Fort Bliss whistleblower soldier that uncovered this whole scheme, this whole funeral home scheme that includes organ harvesting, that includes targeting young women that are pregnant in crisis pregnancies, that their babies are stripped from their bodies along with their organs, and what's left of them is dumped in places like Plenitude Crematorium. The babies, if they survive, are attempted to be sold to the homosexual community in the United States. We're the only ones reporting that the El Paso Criminal Law Magistrate Court is illegal. The entire court is illegal right now. Not the court is illegal, but the judges are illegal because that court has full county-wide jurisdiction. When you have full county-wide jurisdiction, the Texas Constitution is very clear, very clear. Those judges have to be elected. Why aren't they elected? You got 5 judges there, including Anthony Aoun, who is, I think that was a quid pro quo that he got that seat just recently because he's buddies with the Mayellas, the family of the Walmart mass shooter, who's being protected. Why is he being protected? What did they have up their sleeve? Could it be that they orchestrated the Walmart mass shooting? We're the only ones that reported that they're orchestrating the Walmart mass shooting. We've presented the videos. We've presented the anomalies. We've presented mountains of evidence. The open checkbook that costs taxpayers millions of dollars. And that Walmart mass shooting is connected to our son's unit. That's why it was so important to us. It was so important to us because they're intertwined. Those cases are intertwined. Because the main target of the Walmart mass shooting was President Trump, wasn't it? They absolutely put a false narrative spin on it with a white supremacy, which who was the one that was targeted? I showed the video. I showed the body on the floor. Of course, I redacted the gruesome part, but it was a German national. That's who was targeted. Something happened, but it wasn't what we were told. And it was bloody, yes, but it wasn't what we were told. I presented the after video, and where, nothing makes sense. It's kind of like this whole Charlie Kirk case. It's like Richard's case makes sense now because we've pieced it together. Because who was the target really? President Trump, the 2020 election. And now we have it that, Cesar Duarte, who was the Mexican governor of Chihuahua. Okay, Chihuahua, Mexico is the state that borders El Paso, Texas. And when he was governor, he interfered with our son's case. And he has recently been arrested for the money laundering, for embezzlement. I don't know what all the charges are, but they're really corrupt. And his wife, let me look at my notes. Bertha Olga Gomez Fong. Bertha Olga Gomez Fong. Does that make sense to you? It makes sense to me. Because where was Leilani Hart? Leilani Hart speaks Chinese. And Bertha, she was, there was a warrant out for her arrest in 2020, and she fled to the United States. I believe to Miami. Now that was the governor of Chihuahua's wife. And we know with Cesar Peniche, what has come out with Cesar Peniche, people have to understand what Trump has been exposing lately. He exposed the Plenitude Crematorium where 400 rotting bodies were there piled up like cordwood, rat infested, maggot infested. Families were given construction material, grounded up into fine dust and put into urns to give to the family so that they can keep the body. So, what makes sense that they can recycle the body as unidentified migrants and cash in on humanitarian aid, and then recycle it to another funeral home, and they do the same thing, keep recycling it as unidentified migrant. And then the shells of the bodies, because many of these bodies showed signs of torture, meaning organ harvesting. And that is where evidence leads to that our son's partial remains are there, because we know that he was dismembered. We know that he was his life was taken in the arms room, that he was then stolen, his body stolen off of Fort Bliss. Can you imagine? And then trafficked like a commodity. That's why when we got the 3 autopsy numbers, it didn't make sense. It makes sense now. They're cashing in. They're recycling bodies. And you don't have to have, this is what we've been told, you don't have to have. Can you imagine me as a mother having to do this every day? They need to pay. They need to pay so bad. These are our generals. This is American generals working in cahoots with this cartel faction, with this Mormon cartel faction that go across the border regularly. Matter of fact, there was just someone from Utah driving down to Nova Casa Grandes, Colonial Juarez or Colonial Dublin, and they're driving down there from Utah and flipped, and a lady was killed. They go back and forth regularly. They went down there years ago because they believed in polygamy. And polygamy is so dangerous. I can tell you 5.5 years of doing this, investigating day in and day out, I can tell you right now, polygamy is so dangerous. Everybody's always looking for a wife, always looking for a husband. More husbands, more wives, more children. I love children, but can you imagine? Can you imagine the confusion? And there is a bad transgender movement. You saw that with Charlie Kirk's case, with the killer, with the furry. There's so much confusion there. It takes away their happiness, and all of a sudden they pick up a weapon. They pick up a weapon. There's so much confusion. And anything goes for some money, because there's no loyalty in the family. There's loyalty to the Mormon agenda, the Mormon faction agenda, to the cartel agenda, which is all about money and power and violence, drugs. I can't even tell you how much pollution I've had to read through. Absolute pollution, vile and vulgar pollution I've had to read through. And now we have this coincidence of Bertha Olga Gomez Fong. Really? And why does that mean something to me? Because it's the Mahia Fong family that owned Dreams Cabaret, where this suspect, a prime suspect in Richard's case, a convicted criminal, a confessor of the worst, facilitating the worst type of crimes against children, the worst type of crime against a 7-year-old in her master bedroom by multiple members of her family, having illegal immigration problems. And that's Leilani Hart, who goes by several aliases. She changes her name. And I think that's illegal that she changes her name like she does. Because she's just trying to cover up her crime. And her son was Richard's platoon leader, Dallas Hart. And he is the prime suspect for the killer. And of course, they had connections. They had connections in the CID. They had connections in the mortuary operations. They had connections in the VA. They had connections everywhere in El Paso. Why is that? They're placed there just perfectly. Well, it's because they're in on this criminal trafficking. And the criminal trafficking is, you know, it's so prolific. It's so big that no way does Veronica Escobar not know about it. She protects it. She brings in, she resides over illegality everywhere. Everywhere. She brought in the medical examiner that is cartel tied. And he gets like $500,000 a year, y'all. $500,000 a year from taxpayers. And he's illegal and he's unqualified. But he does what they say, right? He's part of this group. He's part of the Walmart mass shooting group. That's for sure. We have evidence on that. So absolutely jaw-dropping that the Maia Fong Dreams Cabaret, remember Patrick Brookshire, the Trooper Brookshire, who's also family with the Maella Fong that attacked us recently. Well, Leilani Hart was getting her mail there. And we know a couple strippers there. And now you have Cesar Duarte's wife, who Cesar Duarte was just recently arrested. And in 2020, Bertha Fong had to flee because of major gross embezzlement and and they put on a pretty picture, that their deception is really, the way the media captures them and everything, they make them look so good. And they're the devil. They're absolutely the devil. They just bring in hell on earth. And they're protected because everyone's dirty trying to get some money from the criminal trafficking while pregnant women are being targeted to rip their babies out of them, to rip their organs out of them. And men, I don't know how many men have had to pay with their kidneys and everything to get across the border. And then the cartel, if they need a dumping ground, they go to Plenitude Narco Crematorium. And we're still awaiting the identification of the remains. And so if Veronica Escobar knows all this, and she is backed by Obama, Veronica Escobar is not a little player. She doesn't seem like she's a big player, but she's not a little player. She was the co-chair for Biden Harris, and then Harris Waltz. That is very unusual. And that was a $1 billion purse. I think it was a $1.2 billion purse. That doesn't sound like a little player to me. If she's entrusted with that kind of money and that national co-chairship, if she is endorsed by Obama, which she was endorsed by Obama, Obama knows who she is. Obama knows the what's going on in El Paso. He knows Beto O'Rourke. They're all Democrats. And don't forget that north of White Sands was Epstein's Zorro Ranch. All this talk about Epstein, got to focus on that Zorro Ranch because it bordered on White Sands. White Sands. And why is that important? Because they put they don't have, they can turn off their transponder. They can fly through that area protected. They can turn off their transponder. We followed this. We've asked many, many people, trustworthy people. And we're not talking about little people. We're talking about generals. We're talking about officials in high places that have pull. That's who we're talking about. And we know that the generals are all, 44 four-star generals. When all this happened, I said they all need to be fired. They all need, and admirals, I have to put in the admirals, they need to be fired. Where is the esprit de corps? How could anybody allow this to happen? And why are we so top heavy? We had 7 during World War II with how many more troops we had? We had so many more troops. And we had only 7 four-star generals. We have 44? That's absurd. Absurd. And then we, have the 3-star generals like Sean Bernabe. And then you have Stewart. Oh my gosh, David Stewart. He was a 1-star general and he was just panicking. He was just panicking. He was such a nice guy. And they turned him into an orc right in front of our eyes. He made a deal with the devil right in front of our eyes. You could just see him transform. It was so sad. It was so sad. I don't know how he's going to answer for God for what he did. Sean Bernabe was clearly already dark as dark can be. Totally compromised. That was very clear because of the JAG. The JAG are so compromised. Our military, I'm so sick of the lies. And I understand why President Trump says it, because he, wants to renew our esprit de corps in the military. But our military our leadership is in really bad shape. Really bad shape. And you can say, oh, that's a security breach. There's security breaches everywhere. How the heck did they get our son's body off of Fort Bliss without a security breach? And into Mexico without a security breach? And do this whole cover-up without security breaches? I think we need to face reality. and say there is a mutiny going on. We need to absolutely investigate our military leadership, their bank accounts, their bank accounts. I suggested that one time. Did you? I said to Sean Bernabe, who's as dirty as anything. He's so dirty. He's so rotten to the core. I said, well, did you look at their bank accounts? And he was freaking out because he knew that that is what would expose them. That 15-6. The 15-6, my dad came with us and he was like, oh man, we're in trouble. We are in trouble. And, I'm very, very happy to see President Trump in office right now, bringing back some military pride and getting rid of all the crazy wokeness. And I love that he's doing this $1776 for our troops, $1,776 for our troops. They deserve so much more, but not the leadership. They need to be stripped. These generals need to be stripped of everything. It's just such a disgrace. And who am I talking about? Those that are found guilty, and there's a lot of them, of being involved with this criminal trafficking. You saw 48 senators being involved in this cartel money, right? And so Veronica Escobar has, oversight of Fort Bliss. She fought for that because they wanted to redistrict, right? She didn't want to leave because she's in the pocket of Woody Hunt, and Woody Hunt controls 80% of the housing, and he gets all these contracts. And of course, he doesn't want to start over. He's got it all in place right now with Veronica Escobar. So absolutely Obama knows, and I can tell you this. We do have evidence connecting Obama to our son's case. Obama absolutely was targeting Trump. The Walmart mass shooting absolutely was targeting Trump. The murder and all the subsequent atrocity and cover up in our son's case is because they were targeting Trump. Richard was the ally, the whistleblower, the federal whistleblower, confirming President Trump's policies. That's why they had to discredit him and then get rid of him and then hide the evidence. It's very clear. And when it's no mistake, there's no coincidences here. When you have La Diabla's family working for Beto O'Rourke, and she's in connection to this Plenitude crematorium, she's the she-devil, right? She's the she-devil. She's the one that was performing these illegal C-sections using 16, 17-year-old girls. She was the one doing it. And her family is working for Beto O'Rourke. And the owner of Plenitude Crematorium has their house right next to Beto O'Rourke. And many houses and businesses in El Paso. What the heck? What's Governor Abbott doing? He knows. What's Veronica Escobar doing? She knows. So, of course, this is a higher level. This is a Woody Hunt, Soros, Obama. Absolutely. There's no doubt in my mind. Because, don't tell me they didn't want to get into the billions of dollars that you can make from all this criminal trafficking. Of course they want to get into that. They have no moral foundation. They have no moral foundation. Everything is relative to them. Everything is whatever they want it to be. And that always turns very, very violent. Very violent. Because it leads to confusion. And we know that Obama's life is totally confusion. He might have billions of dollars. We know that Jeffrey Epstein's life was confusion. I wouldn't want to be them at all. And everybody always wants a lot of money. I think there's a lot of better things to want in life. Better things to want in life. Because these people, look at President Trump, he can't even enjoy all of his wealth. He's constantly, I can't even imagine. Because I read the news and I'm like, just the headlines, and I'm like, what in the world? Well, lie after lie after lie, after lie after lie. And how do I know it's a lie? Because of 5.5 years of doing this, I can pretty much pick out the lies now. And I can tell you with the Charlie Kirk case, sorry, that's a cover up and a half. And now you have the planes, the Fort Huachuca. I can get into all of that, but that's just all coming out, and it will all tie in together with Richard's case. I guarantee you, because it's the same big people. It's the same big people. That's why it ties in. And their target is President Trump. People say, why do you say it always ties in with this and this? Because very big people are involved in Richard's case, and there's not too many of them. And all of these really big incidences, it's part of their little tit for tat. They ruin our lives. They kill people. They get very violent. Like they don't have something better to do with their billions, millions, and billions. Yeah, it's pretty disgusting. I'm very disgusted at our military. I like Pete Hegseth. I like what they're doing. I've always been a go Army all my life. Everyone knows that. Everyone knows by now, if you've been watching, that I was born at White Sands, which is really always like jaw-dropping for me now, that I was born on the range. I wasn't born at William Beaumont. I was born at White Sands. White Sands, Donna Ana County, New Mexico. It's kind of jaw-dropping, isn't it? And this is the center of everything. The Epstein files. This is the center of the Epstein files. It's the center of all the criminal trafficking. It's the center of the main battle between Obama, open border policies, and Trump wanting a secure border. The targeting of President Trump. It's all about the targeting of President Trump. It's the epicenter of that. The Florida cases and New York cases, they were nothing compared. I mean, they are something, right? But the Walmart mass shooting, 23 people were killed, 22 injured. Richard was absolutely, it was brutal what they did to him. From the very beginning, the retaliation itself was brutal what they did to him. Just because he wanted to do the right thing, because he was a distinguished honor graduate that he was the Christian that he was, and he didn't want to see a person facilitate the worst type of crimes against children. And I just don't trust Obama. I just don't trust him. I never trusted him. I never voted for him because I could never trust him. He seemed off, not genuine, too polished. Kind of like Bill Clinton. He had too much charisma. And I couldn't believe it when they re-voted him in after the whole cigar incident and everything. I was just like, wow. We have a lot of soul searching to do as Americans. And I think, these last few days before Christmas, it's a good time. I mean, I've been doing it every day for 5.5 years. Before that, so much soul searching, right? To understand how people can be this evil. And they can be so evil. And they're so cowardly. They are such cowards. They will give everything up, everything decent up to, because they're afraid. They're afraid of doing what's right. They want the status quo. They don't want heaven on earth. They want the status quo. And yeah, and our government, I don't know, at this point, I think we would be better off without them. I think we would be better off without them. And I think a lot of people agree with me. I think a lot need to be shaved off. A lot of programs, and that look at all of this fraud, the fraud of the funeral homes, the fraud of the humanitarian aid, the fraud in the Medicare up in Minnesota, the fraud, everywhere fraud. And we're like $38 trillion in debt because of fraud. Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm really thinking about uh, where we need to go because we've got all the evidence. And I see Attorney General Paxton up there, campaigning. And I'm like, what the hell are you doing campaigning? You got El Paso to worry about. What are you doing campaigning? You're under taxpayer funds. You need to get yourself in gear and take care of El Paso. I mean, you have an illegal DA, illegal judges in the MAG court, an illegal medical examiner. You have a illegal El Paso police officer, chief of police. You have tunnels everywhere. You got all this trafficking. You got Richard's case. You got the Walmart case with the Mayella case. needs to be absolutely the Mayellas, the family of the Walmart mass shooter. Okay? That's what their name is. Now, do I think that Patrick Crucius is the lone shooter? No. But he admitted to killing one or two. The Mayellas are the family of the Walmart mass shooter. One of them, anyway. And it is so dirty. Where is A.G. Paxton? I have real problems with that. And it's pretty, gets disgusting. So I just want to tell everyone, thank you for sharing all the information. We are hitting millions right now. It's just amazing. And I want to just say thank you to everyone that has been following from the beginning, that know this case, that trust our family, because I think that we've earned everybody's trust. I think we've earned the trust of people coming in and day out and telling you, being transparent and being honest as we think we possibly can be, and presenting all of this information. And we're so grateful, and we love all of you for sharing it during this time, this fight for justice for Richard Halliday. Thank you so much, everyone. God bless you, and I will be back